All right, so we're back again, and now we're going to take and add to our meals meal items. And these will be the same product templates that we've been extending with the calories and the serving size and so forth. And that is the ones that we're, of course, then going to add to our meals. So, how do we begin? Well, we know we need another model. We have our model that we created here for our meals, but we're going to have to also have meal items. So let's go ahead and hit enter and create this model to hold our meal items. We start out always with class, and we're going to use diet facts once again. And I noticed that I kind of did a bad thing here, is I used lowercase here and I used uppercase here. Now fortunately it doesn't really matter for Odoo with how this is defined. Things are tied together more by the names that you specify here, but still it's something to remember, and we'll have to just watch and make sure nothing goes wrong by correcting that, because we want to keep things consistent. So then once again we're going to still use res users because it's still part of the meal, but now it's meal items. So I'm going to call this meal items. And I could call it meal item. We know there's going to be multiple ones. Just like you have sales orders, the model is called sale.order. And when we have products, the model is still called product.template. So we don't necessarily put the plurals into our models. That's why we're going to leave this meal item like that. And once again, we don't want to forget to have that in there. And we could have copied and pasted this, but there's so little to type, I went ahead and typed them out like this. And so for our name, I'm going to pause for a second and let you think about it. What might we name this model that's going to hold meal items? Okay, it's going to be res.users.meal.item. So just like with sale.order and sale.order line, we're going to have our meal and meal item. So these are going to be linked together like that. Now, how do we tie back to here? This is the important part of where we're going to tie these tables together. And I'm going to type out meal ID equals fields.many2one, and now I can type res.users.meal. And let's think about what I've done here, and I accidentally mistyped that. We've got meal underscore ID equal to fields.many2one, and what this means is that we can have many different meals out there, but for this meal item, this is the one that this is going to go with for this meal item. So we might have 10 meal items that go with the same meal. They'll all have this same ID in them. And this tells us to hook it up to the meal. So we have our meal up here with the name, the date, and the user and the notes. And we have our meal item. This tells that meal item which meal it goes with. Just like inside, as you look through different parts of Odoo's system, they'll use IDs to tie things together. So as you look through the framework, look at other models, see how they're tied together. That'll help you know how to write them and to make them yourself. So now that ties the meal to the header here. But we also want to be able to, if we're on here, have easy access to the menu, the meal items. And so that's where I'm going to uncomment this out that we had from our last video. And you'll notice that we have a one-to-many here that we can now put in res.users.meal item. And this ties our item IDs to this table. But in this case, and you'll see there's multiple items, we don't have quite enough information with just this to tell Odoo which field in here matches meal item. It could mean any of them, so we have to give it one more piece of information, and that's meal underscore ID. And so that's how we can now, from our meal, know all the items that go with it. How do we know what items go with them? They're stored here, and we're going to tie together, and these are going to match our system, our model here that we've added with meal ID. So, and that's how these two models work together. And it'll be more clear as we do more models and you understand more about how these fit together. Just right now, what you have to just understand is that when you have a many-to-one, this is going to say that we have this model is what we want to tie back to, and because we've created it right up here, we can have as many meals as we want within our meal items. Now, what other piece of information might we have to have? Well, in addition to the meal ID itself, we also need to know what item, what did we eat? And so we're going to call it item ID, and we could call it product ID because it's really tied to product template. We could call it a diet item ID, but we'll just call it item ID. And this also is going to be a many-to-one. And can you guess which table? It's going to be product.template. So this is how we have a unique meal and a unique item. And then we just have to have one more piece of information about our meal item. We need to know how much we ate. Maybe we ate a full serving, maybe we ate half serving, maybe we ate 3 servings. So we have servings. And this will be a field of a float. And I can see that Eclipse was smart and told me I'm missing that I had a little problem there. I had my N, my Y mixed up. And so our float is going to be servings. So this will be how many servings we've had. And we can also have, for each product we ate or each item that we eat in our meal, we could have some notes. Maybe we want to say something about it. We only ate, a little bit of it or something. But just as an example, we can also have notes here. So we'll have meal item notes. So this is anything that we eat. We'll have the servings for. We can take notes about what we ate. And notice we don't have to have the date and the time we ate it. And we don't have to say what a serving size is, how many calories it is, or anything like that in this meal item, because we're going to get that from our item ID that's going to tie to our product template. So this meal item teaches you quite a bit about Odoo development. You've got a link here to our meal, and our meal is defined right here, res.users meal. And then now you have also in here, in our meal item, an item ID. And that links to our product template. Well, our product template is right up here. And we've also been inheriting from a bigger product template that has a whole bunch of fields in it. But these are the 3 that we've added to that template. So here's our custom field. Here's our models for our meal, our custom model for our meal item. And let's go ahead now, save this, and make sure that Odoo's happy with this new model we've added. And also we want to make sure it's happy that we've changed this class name to have the same naming conventions. So we go back to here, Control C to cancel the server, up arrow, and we rerun it. And now we get 2 warnings. One is for our first model we created that we don't have any permissions for. And this one's for our second model. But it's just a warning, and we can still test out all our code as an administrator. So naturally, we're in the same situation where we have meals here, and if I click on it and click, notice how Odoo does not bring forward any one-to-manys. It doesn't look like. I'm going to shift refresh just to make sure. But you'll notice that there's no evidence that the change that we made up here, item IDs, has made it into our view. And so we can go, and it's always a good idea to do this. It's worth the time just to make sure. If I type in meal, there's our meal item. So we can see that it did create our model. And there's our meal ID we added, our notes, our servings, and the link to item ID there that goes to our product. So let's see, there's one more thing we want to change. I saw it here, is that we don't want this to be named product template. We want this to be named, because we're going to actually see this. This will be menu item. So this will be the menu item. If you notice here that it was going to say meal ID for meal, that's okay, because we won't really see that. But for our item ID, we don't want the field label to say item ID. We want it to say menu item. So we can quickly see this. If I hit save here and I restart, part of that update that Odoo does is it's going to go in and change right here. When I refresh this from saying item ID, it'll change it for us. Notice how it already did it here, menu item, when I clicked on it. If I shift refresh, we'll see that it'll change this out to menu item for us. So we've got our model now for our line item IDs added, and the next step is we want to actually make this show up in our form. So we're going to have to create a view at some point here to actually, have these show up, because you'll notice that it's not in our menu letting us see them. It's not letting us see them because it's part of a view that we'll have to customize. So that's what we'll be looking at in our next lectures, getting our menu items to show up inside here. When we go to meals and click on our meal, we need to have a way to actually add these meal items to our meal. And of course, then soon after, we'll be pulling over the calories and totaling them up so we can see how many calories we have in each of our meals.